Hello and welcome to the Klassiki podcast. I'm your host, Sam Goff. Klassiki is your window into the world of Eastern European film. Subscribers gain access to our library of classic and contemporary titles, as well as access to filmmaker interviews, video introductions, program notes, and more. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial today at klassiki.online. And if you enjoy this show, then don't forget to subscribe in your podcast app, and please leave us a review and a 5-star rating. In this episode, I'm going to be dipping back into the expanding archive of writing on the Klassiki Journal, which you can find at klassiki.online/journal. Today, I'll be reading a profile of the great Romanian director of stage and screen, Lucian Pintilie, whose provocative modernist works bridge the gap between communist-era filmmaking and the new wave that has defined Romanian cinema in the 21st century. Subject to censorship and exile, Pintilie returned to his homeland in the 1990s to cement his legacy and influence a new generation of directors. Make sure to check out the links in the show description to find the original essay, to watch Pintilie's classic satire Reconstruction, and to explore our collection of classic Romanian titles. The international reputations of national cinemas are often reductive, but in Romania's case, the effect is extreme. The 21st century new wave of award winners like 4 Months, 3 Weeks, 2 Days, and The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, as well as more recent offshoots such as the iconoclastic provocations of Radu Juda, has defined Romanian film in the eyes of outsiders to a remarkable degree. With other post-socialist states, communist-era movements are often understood as part of a national cinematic evolution and as precursors to contemporary filmmaking. Think of the afterlives of the Yugoslav Black Wave, or the ongoing effects of the poetic cinema tradition in the Baltic nations. But Romania's pre-1989 cinema hardly gets a look in. There are a number of reasons for this: the relatively late institutionalization of film production in the country after the Second World War, the Ceausescu regime's increasing isolationism that cut its filmmakers off from the international circuit. But the new wave didn't arrive from nowhere, and Romanian film history is full of gems. Perhaps the best way to understand both classic and contemporary cinema in context is to look at figures who bridge the gap between the two. For Romanian film, the outstanding candidate is Lucian Pintilie. He was at the heart of the flourishing of innovative filmmaking that invigorated artists and audiences alike in the 1960s. His background in theatre and his peripatetic and censorship-afflicted career speak to the particular conditions informing Romanian directors under Ceausescu. And his post-1989 work set the stage for the festival triumphs of Cristian Mungiu, Cristi Puiu, and co. Indeed, Pintilie is sometimes referred to as the godfather of the new wave, but his own films are far too intriguing to be reduced to mere scene setting. Pintilie was born in 1933 in Bessarabia, a historical region split between present-day Moldova and Ukraine. A fellow Bessarabian was the great Kira Muratova, another iconoclastic filmmaker whose influential work bridges the communist and post-communist eras. Pintilie remembered his cosmopolitan homeland as being, quote, inhabited by a genuine ethnic mosaic: Romanians, Ruthenians, Gagauzes, Turks, Tatars, Jews, and of course, Ukrainians and Russians. He attended school in Bucharest before becoming a member of the first generation to attend the capital city's Institute of Theatre and Cinematographic Art. Before he came to cinema, Pintilie had made a name for himself in theatre. It was common for directors in Romania to shuffle between the two disciplines. In contrast to the august institutions of neighbouring countries like Ukraine and Hungary, film production only truly took off in Romania after the Second World War, and talent needed to be identified in the parallel world of stage directing. Pintilie was a resident director at Bucharest's famous Bulandra Theatre from 1960, where his stagings of classics by Shaw, Gogol, and Chekhov cemented his reputation. The Bulandra Theatre was to have an outsized influence on Romanian cinema in the 1960s. Its artistic director, while Pintilie was resident there, was Liviu Ciulei, known for his productions of Shakespeare, Brecht, and O'Neill, who would have a brief but potent film career. He directed only 3 features, but the final of these, 1965's Forest of the Hanged, became the first Romanian film to gain international recognition, when it won him the Best Director palm at Cannes. As it happens, Pintilie's and Ciulei's fates were conjoined. Although the stage afforded some leeway from the censors, to a degree that film did not, Pintilie's production in 1972 of Nikolai Gogol's classic Russian satire The Government Inspector proved too risky, and both men found themselves shut out of future work, with Pintilie leaving the country soon afterwards. Before then, though, he had already made his mark on Romanian cinema with 2 canonical titles. First came Sundays at 6 in 1965, which charts the romance between 2 communists while bringing the pair into conflict with their ideological commitments. Marrying a bleak sense of humour with an unconventional narrative structure, the film was perhaps inevitably criticised from above, although Pintilie would eventually be allowed to make his much more celebrated, more explosive, and more subversive follow-up, Reconstruction, 3 years later. This film was adapted from a short story by the writer Horia Petrescu, and based on an incident that the author had witnessed in a provincial town, where militiamen had arrested 2 young men who they accused of drunken antisocial behaviour. But for some reason, they then decided to have the pair reenact the scene in order to demonstrate to the public the dangers of alcohol abuse. Pintilie's theatrical background, as well as his penchant for absurdist humour and Brechtian alienation techniques, made him the perfect candidate to reimagine Petrescu's work for the cinema. The film stars Gheorghe Mihaitsa and Vladimir Gaitan as Voica and Nicu, the ill-fated students at the heart of the farce. After their graduation party, the pair got drunk and assaulted the waiter at their sleepy local riverside bar in the Carpathian foothills. Rather than sentencing the pair to regulation punishment, the local procurator, a looming Gheorghe Constantin, decides to have them recreate their brawl for the benefit of a film crew who are making an educational short about the perils of alcoholism. Events are corralled by bilious militiaman Dumitrescu and eavesdropped by a flirtatious local girl, played by future screen star Ileana Popovic, as well as the booze-addled voice of reason, a teacher named Pavliu. In the hands of Pintilie, Petrescu, and cinematographer Sergiu Huzum, this basic premise quickly and predictably collapses in on itself. The film and the film within the film becoming instead a treatise on the slippery relationship between performance and reality, and the ways in which the film camera both services and undermines notions of authority. The reconstruction itself is only fitfully observed, with Pintilie's attention more focused on extraneous details and side plots, equipment failures, the search for a gaggle of lost geese, the procurator's attempts to sunbathe his way through the whole affair. Ever the theatre man, for Pintilie, realism is an end and not a means. In 2008, Reconstruction was voted the greatest Romanian film of all time. Unsurprisingly, the film provoked consternation among the state studio authorities, who allowed it a very limited release in the Transylvanian town of Timișoara, as well as at Bucharest's Luceafărul Cinema, where, Pintilie later claimed, the projectionist was driven out of his mind by incessant demands for repeat screenings. Soon, the film was pulled from screens altogether until the 1990s. In combination with the Bolandra incident, Pintilie now had more than enough reason to emigrate. He spent much of the next decade in France, at the Théâtre National de Chaillot and the Théâtre de la Ville in Paris. During this period, he also adapted his beloved Chekhov for the cinema screen, this time in Yugoslavia, releasing a film titled Ward No. 6 in 1978. Pintilie was able to return to Romania, although not to work in theatre while there. He was even allowed to direct another film there, 1982's Carnival Scenes. But when that too was pulled from the screen, he spent the rest of the Ceausescu era abroad. It is true, on one level, my work does not correspond to official art, he told the Washington Post in 1986. My vision of the world is crueler, more sarcastic, more satirical. But at the same time, there is a great deal of tenderness underneath. But one day, I shall win this bet. I have a mystical conviction that I will make movies again in my country. Pintilie did indeed live to win his bet. As was the case with his fellow Bessarabian director Kira Muratova, a stymied socialist career gave way to post-communist prolificity, with 6 features completed before his death in 2018. The first of these was perhaps the most consequential, 1992's The Oak, about the rebellious daughter of a former officer of the communist secret police force. Pintilie's concern for the brutality of the past and its lingering aftermath in the democratic present was further developed in the thriller Too Late from 1996, about a desperate group of coal miners, and then later in The Afternoon of a Torturer from 2001, a disturbing exploration of the psychology of Ceausescu-era repression. An Unforgettable Summer, set in the 1920s and starring Kristen Scott Thomas as the wife of an army officer faced with a moral dilemma, was a more opulent departure. It was in these later years that Pintilie's influence on the coming new wave was made concrete. Tudor Gheorghiu, a filmmaker and director of the Transylvania Film Festival, was the assistant director on Too Late. In his words, it was like attending a second film school. No less than new wave icon Cristi Puiu and new wave screenwriting sensation Răzvan Rădălescu wrote Pintilie's final film, Nicky and Flo, which was released in 2003. In his obituary for Pintilie, the critic Nick Roddick describes Nicky and Flo as, quote, a kind of autopsy of Romania a decade after the revolution. A truly unique mixture of absurdist comedy, documentary-like domestic detail, and the playing out of toxic relationships. It's telling that this description fits Pintilie so well, whilst also serving as an elevator pitch for the Romanian new wave that was just around the corner. 2 years after Nicky and Flo came out, Cristi Puiu would himself direct The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, from a script by Rădălescu, thus kickstarting a new era for Romanian film. And without Pintilie, by Puiu's own admission, the new wave would never have existed. His fellow New Wave alumnus Corneliu Porumboiu put it even more cleanly. He was once asked by an interviewer what he had wanted to be when he grew up, and he replied simply, Lucian Pintilie. That was Lucian Pintilie, godfather of the Romanian New Wave, written and read by Sam Goff. You can find this and other essays, companions, and watch lists on our journal at klassiki.online/journal. Make sure to check out the links in the show description to find the original essay, to watch Pintilie's classic satire Reconstruction, and to explore our collection of classic and contemporary Romanian titles. And don't forget to subscribe to the show in your podcast app. And please leave us a review and a 5-star rating to help us reach as many people as possible. Thank you.